Hi there, everyone. It's Gloria with Glory Be Resale, and I am here to do a what sold on eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, and Etsy from July 21st to August 3rd. So we're going to get started over on eBay. The first thing to sell was this L'Oreal Paris um, dark spot serum, and this sold for $20. Cost to me on it was $6.49. The next thing to sell was this BCBG Max Area Oatmeal Speckled Cardigan, which I have had forever. Happy to see this gone. I took an offer of $10. I paid $1. So happy to see it go. Next item to sell was this Talbot's Petite Pure Italian Merino Wool Plum Cardigan, new with tags, and this sold for $28, and the cost to me on it was $6. Next item to sell was this vintage drugstore wintergreen oil and spearmint oil bottles. These I sold for $22, and the buyer contacted me because one of them had leaked uh, during shipping. So they did have oil all over them. So I offered to give him half price if he wanted to keep them, and he did. So I refunded him $11. So I sold them for $11, and the cost to me was $1. Next item was this Have Bernard Pure Linen gray sleeveless tank top, and this one sold. I took an offer of $12. Cost to me on it was $2.50. Another summer item that time to get rid of. Next item to sell was this rare antique detachable ambulance cast iron metal sign. This sold for $249. The cost to me on it was $25. Next item to sell was this vintage 70s fallen skater girl, and she sold for $15. Cost to me on it was 50 cents. Next item to sell was this vintage mid-century wooden desk caddy, letter holder, and pen holder. And this sold for $29, and the cost to me on it was $5.60. The next item to sell was this vintage 90s set of metal curtain tiebacks, and these sold for $15. The cost to me on them was $1. The next item to sell was this vintage 80s handmade folk art wooden patchwork hat design wall hanging. This sold for $15. Cost to me was $1. I just bought this at a yard sale a couple weeks ago. Next item was this new Vietri Viva mistletoe deer, and this sold for $35. Cost to me on it was $3. That was also a fairly quick sale online. It hasn't been listed that long. It did sit in my booth for almost a year, and I finally decided to take it home and sell it online. Glad I did. The next item over on Poshmark now was this Faraday's organic cotton long sleeve striped polo, and this sold for $30. Cost to me on it was $5. Next item to sell was this vintage teddy bear hand inlaid wood wall hanging, and this one sold for $18. Cost to me on it was $3. Next item to sell was this quince brown 100% Mongolian cashmere crew neck sweater. And this I haven't had that long either, but somebody sent me an order for a offer for $19. And again, I'm sure I just wanted to make a sale, so I took it. Cost me on it was $6.49. And if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. Makes this all worthwhile. Thanks. Next item to sell was this Lucky Brand wrap skirt. It's a blue-gray floral, and this sold for $29. Cost to me on it was $5. Next item to sell was this vintage Chinese blue and white porcelain bulldog, and this had a porcelain ball in its mouth. This sold for $40. Cost to me on it was $5. Next item to sell was this loft outlet floral color block maxi dress, another summer dress. Somebody sent me an offer of $15 and I took it. I didn't want to counter and not make the sale because I don't want to hang on to summer dresses in August. So I took the offer. Cost me on it was $5.99. Next item to sell was this Abercrombie and Fitch Muscle Henley jersey, and this sold for $20. Cost to me on this was $5.99. Next and last item to sell on Poshmark was this Peruvian Connection black and white striped A-line maxi skirt. This sold for $45. Cost to me on it was $4.99. This week I had a couple of sales on Poshmark. I really haven't been selling much of anything on Poshmark. So this week I sold a couple things. This first one was this vintage Infant of Prague nightlight, and this is made of plastic with the cloth row. And this sold for $22.97. And the cost to me on this was $3.99. The second thing to sell on Mercari was this Baby Gap toddler wool blend zip front sweater. This sold for $14, and the cost to me on it was $2.50. Now over to Etsy, and the first thing to sell over on Etsy was this vintage 90s country farmhouse wall shelf in a hunter green with a brown beadboard backing. This sold for $45. Cost to me on this was $3. The next thing to sell was this Wilson's, vintage Wilson's 40s, 50s, leather hard shell football helmet, distressed prop. And this I haven't had very long. I picked this up at a yard sale maybe a month ago. And this sold for $79. The cost to me on it was $2. Next item to sell on Etsy was this lot of 2 new and packaged giant stuff a pumpkin leaf bags, and these sold for $27. The cost to me, I bought these at an estate sale, 2 of them for $1. Next item to sell was this vintage 1970s Gucci nautical set of 4 placemats and napkins made in Italy, and these sold for $249. The cost to me on them was $5. I bought these at an estate sale in the spring sometime. Next item to sell was this vintage wood wall shelf cubby hat with hats on the door. And this did have distress and wear. It needs to be redone. And this was from the 1980s. And it sold for $26.25. I say I had that on sale. And the cost to me on it was $3. Next item to sell was this solid wood long plate shelf. It was long and skinny with the captain's rail on it. And this sold for $33.15. And the cost to me on that was $1. Next item to sell was this pair of wooden bows. Vintage, probably, I'm guessing from the 80s, maybe 70s. I'm thinking 80s though. And these sold for $29, and the cost to me on them was $1. Next item to sell was this vintage children's shaker style chair with the wood ladder back and the rush seat. This sold for $39, and the cost to me on it was $3. Next item to sell was this vintage mid-century modern wood kitchen canisters, four-piece set and square. And these sold for $79, and the cost to me on these was $10. The next item to sell was this vintage 60s, 70s wood two-drawer, 18 glass jar plastic cork spice rack, and this sold for $80.55, and the cost to me on it was $7.99. And the last item to sell on Etsy was this vintage white cottagecore hot shelf cubby with two bottom pegs, and this sold for $35, and the cost to me on it was $1. And that is everything that I sold between July 21st and August 3rd on eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, and Etsy. I am hoping that you're having great sales and, getting ready. If you're not making sales, just keep listing, getting ready for Q4. And hopefully it will be a good one. I will see you next time. Again, like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. And you have a great sales. Thanks. Bye.